Okay, good morning. We're going to go ahead and start this class. And if you have made some decisions to stop using oil because you've heard of Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, he's the famous heart specialist who has helped so many people to reverse their clogged arteries in their heart just by a plant-based diet that's been oil-free and limited nuts and avocado also. But this is going to go into the reasons why that works so well. And so we're going to talk about omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. And let's start with a Bible verse, 3 John 1, verse 2. It says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth." And that is my heart desire, is that people receive ultimate health, because it does affect us mentally and spiritually. And the thing about health is very simple. I know that we try to make it complicated, but circulation is the key. And there's a quote that I like, found Testimonies, page 532. It says, "Perfect circulation is perfect health." And we're going to talk about how these oils can clog up the circulation. So understanding the importance and how circulation works is what's going to help us. So there are two fluid systems in our body that need to be circulated. One is the blood and the other is the lymph. And they both are increased by exercise and sufficient intake of water. We're not going to go into that today, but those two things are very important. The thing we're going to talk about is how they are slowed down by refined foods and heavy mucus-forming foods and cooked foods. And so both of these circulations will be slowed down by that. But we're going to talk today about the refined oils and why is it that they are so important to understand how they clog up the system and stop the circulation, cause inflammation. Should we be concerned with fat in our diet? And from one of my favorite health books called Counsels on Diets and Foods, page 63, paragraph 4, it says, "Grains and fruits prepared free from grease and in as natural condition as possible should be the food for the tables of all who claim to be preparing for translation to heaven." And another quote from the same book says, "A plain diet, free from spices and flesh meats and grease of all kinds, would prove a blessing." So, as free from grease of all kinds as possible. So let's define what is grease. In the dictionary, it's plain. It's any oily or fatty matter in particular. And of course, the verb is to oil. Why no grease of any kinds? Well, grease will slow the circulatory system down, both the blood and the lymph. The lymph system is our waste removal system. When this system gets congested, tumors can form. When eating grease or fat in its free-flowing, refined form, you can have problems with the fat globules that are too big, too large to pass through the capillaries in the eyes and ears, causing obstruction. Now, when you're eating the foods like, say, sunflower oil versus eating it in the sunflower, if you eat it in its whole food content, there are properties in that help to emulsify that fat, make the fat globules go through your system in very small globules, whereas if you take the oil out and you take it in, those globules are so large that they can't even fit through your capillaries to your eyes and your ears, causing problems. So we have had people come here to White Creek who have had glaucoma, and the no oil diet that we promote and the low fat is something that has helped them tremendously. So that was one way of how oil can clog up the system. Another way is that many vegetable oils are high in omega-6 fatty acids, which cause a constriction and inflammation of the veins and arteries. This constriction and inflammation can last up to 6 hours after consuming a meal with oil high in omega-6. And we're going to get to that, which oils those are. But when we eat the proper balance of omega-6 to omega-3 in whole foods, this does not happen. Omega-3 lowers cholesterol and causes the arterial endothelium to vasodilate, which leads to an increase in blood flow to the heart and brain. And the best balance of omega-6 and omega-3 is 4 to 1. 4 being the omega-6, 3 to 1 is the omega-3. Now, this is not something that you want to aim for. It's something you don't want to rise above the ratio, above 4 to 1. You can have it 1 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, and there's many foods that are higher in omega-3. But once you reach that omega-6 at a 4 to 1, any higher, the body doesn't recognize the omega-3, and it utilizes the omega-6, so you're kind of not getting any good out of your omega-3. So this is why you want to keep it low. Okay, let's look at some of the foods that are high in omega-6. Now, the red is omega-6, the green is omega-3. And as you can see, we want that ratio to be 4 to 1. Well, if you're going to use safflower oil, which is in most chips and corn chips, potato chips, a lot of foods, because safflower oil is a very inexpensive oil, easily obtained and cheap. So, as you can see, there's no omega-3, and it's all omega-6. Same thing with almonds, sunflower seeds, sesame oil, pumpkin seeds. As you can see, these seeds and nuts are very high in omega-6, and we're going to look into using whole nuts and how we should use those also to avoid getting too much omega-6. Now we get down to olive oil. It's getting a little better. Olive oil is about 11 to 1, but still too high. And if you would eat olives in its natural state, you're not going to get so much of that oil. It's when we take it out and eat it in a refined way that causes it to be so out of balance. We can't even bring it into balance by eating more walnuts and more fruits and vegetables. As you can see, walnuts are the perfect. It's 4 to 1. Bananas, great. All these vegetables and fruits, strawberries, lettuce, chia, flaxseed, spinach, they are perfect balance. And this is what we were intended to eat, is that fruits and vegetables, mainly fruit. Okay, I want to tell a little story about this lady that came to our wellness center. I think my husband already talked to you about that in the first class. I'm going to re-emphasize it because this is such a great testimony and what happened to her. She came to the wellness center kind of like an emergency. She was just getting so dizzy and having so much problems, and she showed up here on our front door and says, "Can you help me? I am having so much problems." And come to find out, she was already a vegetarian, a vegan even, and she was eating 2 meals a day. We found out she wasn't drinking enough water. She was eating quite a bit of raw foods, but she started drinking more water. And my husband asked her, he says, "Well, do you use olive oil?" Because this is one of the main things that we as Adventists fall back on, is using that refined oil, thinking it's good because there's so much information out there that's confusing. So anyway, she says, "Oh, I use it on just about everything." And she liked it on her oatmeal, on her toast, and she's thinking that she was doing a good thing for her body. Well, when she came, she didn't use the olive oil anymore, and she was here for about 3 or 4 days. And after about 3 or 4 days, she was here. Started working in the garden, and before she couldn't even sweep a 10-foot by 10-foot piece of floor without getting dizzy. And now, in the heat of the day, she is out there working in the garden and just had more problems. And so she had this carotid artery that was clogged. It was deteriorated. And so because of this, it was causing her to not get the flow of blood to her brain. And eating the olive oil, which high in omega-6, constricts the blood vessels, caused the inhibition of the blood to flow to her brain. She was so happy. I'd like to read another one of my favorite books, Counsels on Diets and Foods, another quote from there, page 350, it says, when properly prepared olives, like nuts, supply the place of butter and flesh meats. The oil, as eaten in the olive, is far preferable to animal oil or fat. It serves as a laxative. Its use will be found beneficial to consumptives, and it is healing to an inflamed, irritated stomach. So now, as you can see, we get the idea of using the olive oil, but this says as eaten in the olive. So that means eat it in its whole state. I'd like to show you how much we are benefiting by eating it in the whole state. If you look at olives, you notice we're going to take 115 calories worth of olives, which is about 3.5 ounces. Well, that's maybe about half a can of olives, and I know I love olives. I could eat that much. So you have vitamin A, 402, vitamin K, 1.4, potassium 8, calcium 88, copper 28%, iron 41%. Well, look at, if you took that much calories, so that's about 1 tablespoon, and you used it on your food, you would get 0 vitamin A, 0 K, 0 potassium, 0 calcium, 0 copper, 0 iron. So not only is this constricting the blood vessels because of the high omega-6, it is also robbing your body, because when you use these calories, you're using your body, you're moving around, your eyes are using it, your brain, all these things. But when you use calories from empty calorie foods, there's nothing to restore. So you're actually having to rob from your body these nutrients somewhere from your bones or... Now I would like to talk about the nuts here. As you can see, we have English walnuts as the best ratio, 4:1. Go on down, pecans, not so bad. And then we get into pistachios, sesame seeds, poppy seeds, pumpkin seeds, pine nuts, Brazil nuts, almonds, and we get to peanuts. Now I want you to notice that that is the highest. It's a 5,500 to 1, whereas like sesame seeds are 96 to 1. So even if you used a little bit of sesame seeds and you ate a lot of fruit and vegetables, you could make up for that extreme amount. But we have instruction given to us also in the same book, Counsels on Diets and Foods, page 364, says, I have been instructed that the nut foods are often used unwisely, that too large a proportion of nuts is used, that some nuts are not as wholesome as others. Almonds are preferable to peanuts, but peanuts in limited quantities may be used in connection with grains to make nourishing and digestible food. So as you can see, this instruction, this book was written back in the 1800s, and it has so much wisdom in it, and did not even know back then about the high omega-6 in peanuts, the 5,000 to 1. Again, we can look at this ratio and look at almonds. Almonds was preferable to peanuts, but peanuts in limited quantities is okay. So as you can see, now that we have this knowledge, we have scientific-based evidence of what the best nuts are for us if we're looking for better circulation and we're trying to avoid certain diseases. So we're going to go into some of the diseases that the high omega-6 can cause. But the English walnuts are great, and even you know that they're formed like a brain, and so they're very good brain food because this omega-3 fatty acids are so good for the brain. And so let's look at some of these diseases. So we know that not only the heart is affected because of the constriction, but high omega-6 can also be a good cause of Alzheimer's disease. So as you can see, Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death, and it is on the rise. So we need to find out how we can avoid getting Alzheimer's. This is some quotes by, or a quote by Dr. Michael Greger. He has a website called nutritionalfacts.com, and he studies nutrition in all its forms and what causes problems with. He's a vegan himself, so he's not biased here. So he gives this information about how vegans need to be careful. It says total vegetarians and meat eaters have the same amount of heart disease. And some studies show that Alzheimer's disease was twice as high in vegans than those who consume animal products. And I do know two people actually who had, they passed away now, Alzheimer's. I don't know any others, but those two were vegan. So I don't know, this study could be correct, but there is a good reason why, and it's because we need to follow the wonderful instruction that we have. If we do, we will not get Alzheimer's, and it is caused by the high omega-6 fatty acids, and we'll look into this a little bit more. Okay, so this last little paragraph, it says, these deaths should not have happened. It has been proven through studies that these diseases can be prevented by three simple things. One, omega-3 fatty acids, eating high omega-3 fatty acids. Two, taking a B12, and we're going to go into that, why we need to take a B12. God did not make a mistake in making us vegan or total vegetarian, but there is a reason why. And number three is folic acid, which is found in fruits and vegetables. So if we're eating our fruits and vegetables like we should, be filling up on those and taking our B12 and avoiding the omega-6, we should be fine with not getting dementia. Okay, this next slide shows how much it has increased. As we can see from 2000 to 2009, that Alzheimer's has doubled. So where it was 14.3, it's now, but this was 2009. From 2000 to 2009, it's even more now. It has increased to 29.8 from 14.3. And in those that are 80 years old, that last one was from 60 to 79. Those that are 80 years old, it went from 144 to 504. And for women, it's about the same. And so we have got to pay attention to what is the cause. Okay, so 1 in 10 have Alzheimer's in their 60s, 1 in 5 have Alzheimer's in their 70s, and 1 in 3 have Alzheimer's in their 80s. So we know that this is easily taken care of by eating those foods that are high in omega-3 that do not constrict the blood vessels, actually relax them. Before we do that, let's look at how the low and middle income countries are increasing faster than the high income countries. And why is that? Look at this next slide. It shows that those foods that are high in omega-3 are more expensive, they're time consuming, it takes motivation to make them, whereas the other foods on the right are foods that are inexpensive, they're fast, they're tasty, and they give you that satisfaction. They're easy to make. Just buy it from the store. Okay, so higher income people can afford to take the time to make these foods, can afford to buy these foods. Fruits and vegetables are a lot more expensive than a bag of potato chips. What's in the potato chips? We see that the cottonseed oil, sunflower oil, sugar dextrose, all these things are very high in the omega-6 fatty acids. And looking again at safflower oil, as we can see, super high, and the cottonseed oil is very high in omega-6, but there is absolutely no omega-3. So let us read our labels to make sure that we're getting the right amount of omega-3. Okay, here are the foods that are high in omega-3. We have on the nuts, we have flaxseed, chia seed, hemp seed, and English walnuts. And on our website, we do have some foods that we like our sprinkles, the carob fudge topping, the one that is with the chia, those are high in omega-3. Winter squash, well, there's a pumpkin pie recipe on our website that is delicious, and that winter squash is amazingly high in omega-3. The cabbage family, beans, mung beans, especially, and leafy greens, and sapotes. Yeah, I've got this spelt wrong. This is a food that you can get in Dominican Republic especially. It's a tropical fruit. And those are very good. So if you live in a tropical area and you can get these sapotes, they are very good. And I want to talk a little bit about the EPA and DHA, because I know some people that have studied this in depth think that they really need to eat fish to be able to get their DHA omega-3 fatty acids. But just like us eating our beans and our grains, we say we're going to eat what the cow eats or what the rabbit eats instead of eating the rabbit or the cow. Same thing with the DHA. We want to eat what the fish eat in order to get this DHA, which is seaweed. It all comes down to the fish eat the fish that eat the fish that eat the seaweed. Mm-hmm. And so they're passing down this omega-3 fatty acid. And also I wanted to show that the flaxseed oil, how much omega-3 it has there, but it doesn't have the DHA. Here's a slide that talks about this more. It says the ALA, omega-3, is from fruit, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. And we make EPA from a combination of ALA and DHA. So it's important to get a DHA, omega-3 food source from the ocean. If you cannot do this, if you don't like to eat the seaweed, then you can take a supplement, or you can take seaweed kelp pills. There's seaweed, algae, DHA, total vegetarian supplements that you can take also. And so this increases your ability to have the brain health. The EPA omega-3 is from fish and other animal sources. EPA supports the heart, immune system, and inflammatory response. Our bodies make this from DHA and ALA, so we don't have to eat the fish. All right, the DHA omega-3 is from fish and seaweed and algae sources. DHA strengthens the brain, eyes, and central nervous system. If you are just depending on fruits and vegetables, nuts, and seeds for your omega-3, you could be missing out on preserving your brain health. But as long as you're staying away from high omega-6, I think you're going to. But algae and seaweed are very good. They're vegetarian sources of DHA that can be used for supplementing the vegetarian or vegan diet. But DHA extracted from algae contains no EPA. The U.S. News and World Report article suggests combining DHA-rich algae with ALA-rich plant sources that the body converts to EPA to get the proper ratio of omega-3 fatty acids. Okay, so here's some sources of the DHA. We can eat nori sheets. They're delicious. We wrap our vegetables, our rice and lettuce and avocado in the nori sheets and eat them like a burrito, and they're very good. You can use kelp pills, chlorella, spirulina, and dulse. Dulse is a very good tasting seaweed. You can get it in that is powdered or in flakes, and you can put it on your salads. And here is a picture of the seaweed. Here's a picture of the supplement that has the EPA and DHA from the algae oil that you can get. And there's so many varieties now because people are becoming aware of the fact that they need the DHA. Alzheimer's is on the. Okay, so now a B12 deficiency. We're going to talk about that. It results in brain and nerve disease, dementia. And so if you want to stay heart attack and dementia free, by consistent use of fruits and vegetables, omega-3, high foods, and vitamin 12, B12, and kelp, dulse, and seaweed. But where can we get the B12? Because only in animal sources. Can a total vegetarian eat food with B12? Now, there's a lot of controversy on this. This one's from Michael Greger, Dr. Michael Greger, who has that website I told you about, nutritionalfacts.com. He says, some books and websites claim that plants like sea vegetables, shiitake mushrooms, and tempeh are sources of B12. However, many of them contain inactive B12 analogs, compounds that are similar to vitamin B12. But don't have any vitamin activity. And no plant food has been shown to improve B12 status in humans. There are only two reliable sources of B12 for vegans. Foods fortified with this nutrient, which includes nutritional yeast grown on a B12-rich medium, and supplements. Now, you could say that nutritional yeast has B12, but it's only when it's been grown on a B12-rich medium. But why is that? Why is it that we as total vegetarians need B12? Let's look at this next slide. This is Leonardo da Vinci. He was an artist, and he liked to draw the body, the human body. He would dissect it, and he did the first drawings. And this is the first drawing of an appendix, hundreds of years ago. As you can see, it is very large. Some doctors think that in times past we made our B12 in the appendix. After long years of degeneration, our appendix is no longer the same size as was in the first drawing of the body, and therefore is not properly making B12. This is the reason we are having an epidemic of B12 deficiencies. Dr. Brian Clement of Hippocrates Natural Healing Institution of Florida and the Framingham study brings out that B12 is not a B vitamin, but a probiotic. And so because of the degeneracy of our body from being, we are not getting better, we are degenerating, and it could be from so many antibiotics killing off all that good bacteria in our colon and not restoring it properly also, that we have come to where we are now, needing to take B12. So this is the next one. This is the B12 that we recommend, and you can look it up, find out the differences, why the methylcobalamin is the best form of B12, but most vegetarian forms of B12 are the methylcobalamin. And this one is from My Kind. It's a vegetarian culture made from bacteria. They take a bacteria and they culture it with vegetarian food for the bacteria, and so it is considered total vegetarian. And it's very simple, very inexpensive, and you don't need much. So that's going to be the end of our talk, and we thank you for your participation, your listening, and coming here.